This is Somerville. We're here on Xbox Series X. Be sure to like the video. Subscribing is great as well. So what are we getting here? It's targeting a 4K resolution, 60 FPS with HDR support. That being said, I had definitely noticed a lot of dips and constant screen tearing while playing the entire game. It does seem to get a little better towards the end for whatever reason, but a good chunk of this had constant screen tearing and again, just some dips here or there while playing, which is a bit weird because it doesn't necessarily strike me as something that should be, demanding to that degree, and I think that's a bit of where you jump in and you go, there's a bit of polishing issues with this one. And yeah, let's dive into what Somerville is. So if you're familiar with things kind of like, Limbo, or basically Inside. So these kind of creepy, thought-provoking kind of games, this one is right in line with those, and those other two games are absolutely just gems as well. So this is its own story, its own concept. It's a War of the Worlds type of scenario, or something like that. And don't worry, you're not getting spoiled. This is literally the first 10 minutes of the game. I just recorded it as soon as I started playing because I knew it was one of those games where you don't want to mess or ruin any of the story for people. So this should be spoiler free for you, essentially. So yeah, recorded the first bit, played through it all, and I was like, cool. It's a few hours long. The achievements are all pretty easy to get. That doesn't, kind of be included in my review aspect of it, but if you like achievements, it's not too hard to get them all. So this game is one of those kind of, you're moving along a path, solving light puzzles here or there. There was only a couple times where I was kind of confused a little bit by some of the puzzles, but for the most part, you just move through quite smoothly. And then it's got some kind of really, again, it's a thought-provoking type thing with differing ending scenarios that you can end up with based on basically not necessarily choice, but how much you pay attention to certain things, and also kind of your choice towards the end of everything. So it can split off and go in wildly different ways, which is kind of interesting. But for the most part, yeah, it's very much a guided along path as you follow this, basically this father trying to find out what happened. You hid in the basement with your family, you basically ended up with this ability type thing, and now you're using this ability type thing in order to clear paths. And that is where a lot of the mechanics are kind of based around puzzle-wise, is you using this blue ability, this red ability, and then maybe a little bit of a combination of both as you solve things. Blue turns things to liquid, red solidifies. So that's the idea, is you're using these shapeable materials to kind of move through. There's obviously some kind of weird battle thing going on, and a lot of the game is a mystery. That's the element of it, is you working through and being like, what's happening? But at its core, once again, you are just a father trying to find out what happened to your wife and your young son, while being, I don't want to say helped along, but followed by your good old pal doggo. Gotta have a dog, the dog will always stay by you. And yeah, it is quite a visually distinct sort of game. Some of the story stuff is a lot of happenstance, which is kind of entertaining. But yeah, it's visually very, very striking in terms of setting, atmosphere, and mood. It's not necessarily creepy, if that makes sense, but it is kind of somber. It's very dark. This is a scenario where a lot of bad things are obviously going on. Stuff's being destroyed. There's damage as far as the eye can see. It looks like some kind of weird split war thing. And that in itself is kind of interesting. Now, in general, it's okay. I don't think it's quite as strong as the similar titles that I suggested prior were. It is neat. Oh, and there's these little kind of collectible type things with these little robot things that you can find. I don't know what else you would describe them, little robot balls. And those are kind of entertaining to see along the way, but you'll have to go off into the slight side distance to find some of them. Because again, it's a puzzle game where you're moving through it and the story is told not through necessarily any sort of voice or anything like that, but basically through what you're seeing, what you're witnessing, and just it's got a good sense of scale. Now with that, I did find that despite it having a bit of a shorter runtime, which is fine with me, not everything needs to be super long, I did find that at the end it kind of overstayed its welcome a little bit because it was reusing certain segments it was doing so in an interesting way, but that part of it kind of dragged on a bit, and I felt if they tighten things and polish some stuff a little bit, because it is a little kind of like some of the stuff reaction-wise isn't perfect. But yeah, I think if they would have done that, that would have made it a little bit better of an experience in that regard. But it is an interesting title. You know, if you like something where it's a bit mysterious, a bit somber, a bit quieter, it's an intriguing setup. It does have some, I don't know if you would say like twists or anything like that, but it does kind of send you in different directions, and it's neat how the story is displayed to you, because again, it's sort of vague on purpose, but I think you can kind of put together what is going on pretty easily by just watching it. But the idea of these types of games, at least I always think so, is to kind of make you think about them a little bit. You know, what was going on, what was happening. I don't think this one is quite as complex, again, as the previous titles that I had mentioned, because, you know, obviously this one very much leans on that concept. But it is kind of a little bit more interesting in some of the storytelling dynamics, because the move and the mood, I say move as in how you go through the world, traversing wise, is a little different than what you'd be kind of used to if you played those ones, because it's a lot less 2D flat. It definitely still feels like that, but yet the movement kind of curves you around the world to give it more of a 3D type of effect. It almost feels like a bit like those point and click type adventure games where they started getting a bit more dynamic and a bit like isometric like in style. So that's neat. And again, you know, I think, you know, audio wise, it's kind of really well set up in how you move through things. I don't think anything should be too hard for anyone to kind of work through, but like I said, a couple puzzles I was like, you know, what is it kind of asking? And then I was like, okay, you know, I don't think anything's too hard to solve. It's interesting, it's different, it is I think worthwhile to play. You know, it's got a cool concept. I think if you look at the style of it, you can be like, this is a neat game, this is different. I personally like different types of games, but at the same time, this one again is kind of okay, it's all right. It's not like some mind-blowing sort of thing. It's enjoyable. It has some strong moments to it. It has some slower moments to it. But at its core, you know, it's about family. It's about, you know, one person kind of being stuck in the middle of a situation that is, you know, horrifying, right? Like there was, when the game opens, there's all this destruction and chaos, and you're just, you know, just a regular person that's trying to, you know, be with their family. And that's kind of an interesting concept, because that's the whole point of your journey, your movement, is to try and figure out what happened and everything like that. And it's neat because you're just a very, very determined person. It would be cool to get a little bit more, I would say, close-ups or something like that, so we could connect with the character more. But at the same time, I do feel that this is supposed to be just kind of an everyman father, kind of out here with crazy circumstances and events taking place along the way. But I do suggest taking a notice to some of the smaller things within the game, as that might be something that is impactful for how everything kind of comes together towards the end of it. But for the most part, you just kind of move along a path that's preset. It's linear. Very linear. It is linear. And it's just, again, trying to provide some thought-provoking moments, some neat insights. And I like this type of game. I hope we get to see more similar to it, because I like the concept of it. But I do feel this one they need to polish a bit, getting that performance smoothed out and getting, you know, some of those little things here or there cleaned up a bit. But other than that, pretty neat game, and I think something you could find to be interesting if you like this type of game. But just keep in mind, I think this is another one of those ones where it's not going to be for everyone, and it's not necessarily as must-play as, say, Inside or Limbo was. But it's still a pretty neat thing, and I think something that might surprise you a little bit here or there along the way.